Jaya Yashodhanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramhamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Astotas Dada Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramhamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Astotas Dada Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki ISKCON Guru Vrinda Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Shri Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Devi Ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna and welcome to the Sunday morning program. So today we are continuing with our study of Sri Isopanisad and we'll be doing mantra 8. For those who are here, is there anyone here that hasn't heard of the Sri Isopanisad before? Okay, so we're all familiar. So I'll recite the verse and then we'll continue. Saparyajaka akyam avranam asvana viram sudam apapavidam kavir manisi paribu svayambur yat tata yato ritam vyatat chastvatyabhya samabhya. Translation. Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. So I'll read the purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Here is a description of the transcendental eternal form of the absolute personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is not formless. He has his own transcendental form, which is not at all similar to the forms of the mundane world. The forms of the living entities in this world are embodied in material nature, and they work like any material machine. The anatomy of a material body must have a mechanical construction with veins and so forth, but the transcendental body of the Supreme Lord has nothing like veins. It is clearly stated here that he is unembodied, which means that there is no difference between his body and his soul. nor is he forced to accept a body according to the laws of nature as we are. In materially conditioned life, the soul is different from the gross embodiment and subtle mind. For the Supreme Lord, however, there is never any such difference between him and his body and mind. He is the complete whole, and his mind, body, and he himself are all one and the same. In the Brahma Samhita 5.1, there are similar descriptions of the Supreme Lord. He is described there as Sachit Ananda Vigraha, which means that he is the eternal form fully representing transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss. As such, he does not require a separate body or mind as we do in the material existence. The Vedic literature clearly states that the Lord's transcendental body is completely different from ours. Thus, he is sometimes described as formless. This means that he has no form like ours, and that he is devoid of a form we can conceive of. In the Brahma Samhita 5.32, it is further stated that with each and every part of his body, he can do the work of the other senses. This means that the Lord can walk with his hands, accept things with his legs, see with his hands and feet, eat with his eyes, etc. In the Shruti mantras, it is also said that the Lord has no hands and legs like ours. He has a different type of hands and legs by which he can accept all that we offer him and run faster than anyone. These points are confirmed in this 8th mantra through the use of the words like Sukram, omnipotent. The Lord's worshipable form, Archa Vigraha, which is installed in temples by authorized acharyas who have realized the Lord in terms of mantra 7, is non-different from the original form of the Lord. The Lord's original form is that of Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna expands himself into an unlimited number of forms such as Baladev, Rama, Nrsimha, and Varaha. All of these forms are one and the same personality of Godhead. Similarly, the Archa Vigraha worshipped in the temples is also an expanded form of the Lord. By worshipping the Archa Vigraha, one can at once approach the Lord, who accepts the service of a devotee by his omnipotent energy. The Archa Vigraha of the Lord descends at the request of the Acharyas, the holy teachers, and works exactly in the original way of the Lord by virtue of the Lord's omnipotence. Foolish people who have no knowledge of Sri Isopanisad or any other Shruti mantras consider the Archa Vigraha, which is worshipped by pure devotees, to be made of material elements. This form may be seen as material by the imperfect eyes of foolish people or Kanishta Adhikaris, but such people do not know that the Lord, being omnipotent and omniscient, can transform matter into spirit and spirit into matter as he desires. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.11-12, the Lord regrets the fallen condition of men who had little knowledge, who derived him because he descends like a man into this world. Such poorly informed persons do not know that the omnipotence of the Lord. Thus the Lord does not manifest himself in full to the mental speculators. He can be appreciated only in proportion to one's surrender to him. The fallen condition of the living entities is due to forgetfulness of their relationship with God. Shri Tulsi Maharani ki jai. In this mantra, as well as in many other Vedic mantras, it is clearly stated that the Lord has been supplying goods to the living entities from time immemorial. A living being desires something, and the Lord supplies the object of that desire in proportion to one's qualification. If a man wants to be a high court judge, he must acquire not only the necessary qualifications, but also the consent of the authority who can award the title of the court judge. The qualifications in themselves are insufficient for one to occupy the post. It must be awarded by some superior authority. Similarly, the Lord awards enjoyment to living entities in proportion to their qualifications, but good qualifications in themselves are not sufficient to enable one to receive rewards. The mercy of the Lord is also required. Ordinarily, the living being does not know what to ask from the Lord, nor which post to seek. When the living being comes to know his constitutional position, however, he asks to be accepted into transcendental association of the Lord in order to render transcendental loving service unto him. Unfortunately, living beings under the influence of material nature may ask for other things, and they may be described in Bhagavad Gita 2:41 as having divided or splayed intelligence. Spiritual intelligence is one, but mundane intelligence is diverse. In Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5, verse 30 to 31, it is stated that those who are captivated by the temporary beauties of the external energy forget the real aim of life, which is to go back to Godhead. Forgetting this, one tries to adjust things by various plans and programs. Forgetting this, one tries to adjust things by various plans and programs, but this is like chewing what has already been chewed. Nonetheless, the Lord is so kind that He allows the forgetful living entity to continue this way without interference. Thus, this mantra of Sri Isopanisad uses the very appropriate word yatta tata yataha, indicating that the Lord rewards the living entities just in pursuance of their desires. If a living being wants to go to hell, the Lord allows him to, so without interference. And if he wants to go back home, back to Godhead, the Lord helps him. God is described here as Paribhu, the greatest of all. No one is greater than or equal to him. Other living beings are described here as beggars who ask goods from the Lord. The Lord supplies the things the living entities desire. If the entities were equal to the Lord in potency, if they were omnipotent and omniscient, there would be no question of their begging from the Lord, even for so-called liberation. Real liberation means going back to Godhead. Liberation as conceived of by any impersonalist is a myth, and begging for sense gratification has to continue eternally unless the beggar comes to his spiritual senses and realizes his constitutional position. Only the Supreme Lord is self-sufficient. When Lord Krishna appeared on earth 5,000 years ago, he displayed full manifestation as the personality of Godhead through his various activities. In his childhood, he killed many powerful demons as Aghasura, Bakasura, and Shakatasura, and there was no question of his having acquired such power through any extraneous endeavor. He lifted Govardhan Hill without ever practicing weightlifting. He danced with the gopis without social restriction and without reproach. Although the gopis approached him with a paramour's feeling of love, the relationship between the gopis and Lord Krishna was worshipped even by Lord Chaitanya, who was a strict sannyasi and rigid follower of disciplinary regulations. To confirm that the Lord is always pure and uncontaminated, Sri Isopanisad describes him as Sudam, antiseptic, and Apapavidam, prophylactic. He is antiseptic in the sense that even an impure thing can become purified just by touching him. The word prophylactic refers to the power of his association. As mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:30-31, a devotee may appear to be a Sudarachara, not well behaved in the beginning. Thank you. But he should be accepted as pure because he is on the right path. This is due to the prophylactic nature of the Lord's association. The Lord is also apapavidam because sin cannot touch him. Even if he acts in a way that appears to be sinful, such actions are all good, for there is no question of him being affected by sin. because in all circumstances he is Suddham, most purified. He is often compared to the sun. The sun extracts moisture from many untouchable places on earth, yet it remains pure. In fact, it purifies obnoxious things by virtue of his sterilizing powers. If the sun, which is a material object, is so powerful, then we can hardly begin to imagine the purifying strength of the all-powerful Lord. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer the prayers to our acharyas. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Tidamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Everyone, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Okay, Hare Krishna. So today we celebrate the most auspicious night of the entire year, the first night of Kartik. So I'm sure we're all really looking forward to that. And today our verse is somewhat aligned to the mood of today. So we'll relish some of Srila Prabhupada's purports that, or extracts from his purports that he's given us. Today's class is titled The Transcendental and Eternal Form of the Absolute Personality of Godhead. So to start off and to position the verse within the Isopanisad, this is the last verse of the second section, which is titled the Mahabhagavat's Vision of the Supreme. So the Mahabhagavat is known to be the topmost devotee. We have three levels of devotee: the Kanishta or neophyte devotee, the Madhyam Adhikari, and the Uttama Adhikari. So the Mahabhagavat is also known as Uttama. And an example of an Uttama Adhikari is Srila Prabhupada. And the vision of an Uttama Adhikari is these 8 qualities that we read in the verse, which is so the qualities of the Lord. So the Lord is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, which means he can't be judged, without veins, pure, uncontaminated, a self-sufficient philosopher, and one who fulfills everyone's desires since time immemorial. So, if we refer to the first paragraph of Srila Prabhupada's purport, the first thing we learn in Krishna consciousness is that we are not this body, we are spirit soul. But here we are learning that Krishna is the body and is the soul, and is his mind, and all of that combined, for me, that was a real, that really was a thought provoker, because we learn we're not this body, we're the spirit soul. So if Krishna is his body and his soul, then that means that his entire form is complete. And we learn in the first, or the invocation of Isopanisad, it says Om Purnamidam Purnam. So that verse, I'll just read the English translation, which is, the personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. So Krishna, this complete whole, has created this material world for us because of our desire. We learn that Krishna is fulfilling the desires of the living entity since time immemorial. So our desire to be in this material world is to joy separately from Krishna. And, we are intrinsically a spirit soul, which means that we are also a part of that complete whole. And we are also completely perfect, being a spiritual spark of Krishna. And it just shows the nature of the soul. But to bring the focus back onto Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 6, Krishna says, although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all sentient beings, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So when Krishna appears in this world, it's not that Krishna is born. That's one of the misconceptions that one has, that Krishna was born of, Devaki and Vasudeva. But actually, Krishna appears by his mercy. And another point is that, when Krishna leaves this world, one may question, but does Krishna die, And Srila Prabhupada answers this really nicely. In the same chapter, same verse of Bhagavad Gita 4.6, and he says, "When the sun is out of sight, we think that the sun is set, and when the sun is before our eyes, we think that the sun is on the horizon. Actually, the sun is always fixed in its position, but owing to our defective, insufficient senses, we calculate the appearance and disappearance of the sun in the sky. And because Lord Krishna's appearance and disappearance are completely different from that of any ordinary common living entity, it is evident that he is eternal, blissful knowledge by his internal potency and is never contaminated by material nature." So we see that Krishna actually never appears or disappears. He's actually fixed, and he resides in the transcendental planet of Goloka Vrindavan. However, us as living entities, we are here in the material nature, and our nature is also very temporary. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that as a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. So this shows that we give up the body just like garments, which is clothes. So every day, we change our clothes maybe twice, 3 times a day, but the soul remains. So the person, Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Srila Prabhupada also states in the Mantra 8 of Sri Isopanisad lecture that was given in Los Angeles in May 1970. Srila Prabhupada says, "We change body. Therefore, we do not remember what happened in our last birth. We have forgotten who we were. Just like even in sleep, when we forget our body, we forget our all, environments. While sleeping or dreaming, you are in dreamland. You don't remember even that you got this body. So every day, every night, this is being experienced. Because we are not this body, the body becomes tired. it sleeps or it's inactive. But as I am, I work, I dream, I go somewhere, or I fly, or I go create another kingdom, another body, another environment. This we experience every day, every night. It is not difficult to understand. Similarly, in every life, we create a different environment. So that is Srila Prabhupada's way of showing how this change occurs, even in our daily life, it's every day there's some change and there's some conception of, a different environment. But to bring it back to the Lord's form, there are many forms of the Lord that we worship, that we really place great importance to. So would anyone like to raise their hands and name some of these forms of the Lord that we worship? And it may not necessarily be the avatars of Krishna. Anyone? Rangamata? Lord Damodar? Yes. That's a mood, or not mood, but Krishna in the form of a baby. Yes, that's correct. Anyone else? Ujjwala Rasamataji? Lord Nrsingadev? Yes. Lord Varaha? Yes. But I'm looking for something a little more than that. How Krishna, like the incarnation of Krishna through word, what would that be? Okay, the holy name, the Srimad Bhagavatam, we get the deity of Krishna, the different expansions of Krishna, and Krishna's original form. And it's said that in the Brahma Samhita, that one can only see this form of Krishna if a person whose eyes are smeared with the ointment of love can see this beautiful form of Krishna. So that's what I really wanted to highlight, is this, we can't see Krishna, just as we desire. It's and we read in Srila Prabhupada's purport how Krishna lifted Govardhan hill without practicing weightlifting. And you can see Srila Prabhupada's sense of humor there as well. Without practicing weightlifting. And Govardhan is 25 kilometers, and to pick up Govardhan, it would take, I don't know how many, forklifts or whatever we would use. So Krishna did that with his baby finger, and it just shows that Krishna doesn't need to practice anything, but here we are as practicing bhaktas or bhaktins. We have to practice, and to get this ointment of love, to see the beautiful form of Krishna, is not easily achieved. It's through our practice of sadhana. And that's where we are different from Krishna, because we are still, even from Krishna's devotees, we still have a lot to go through in our devotional life and through the processes of bhakti. I also found this really beautiful verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 21, verse 105, and this describes Krishna's beautiful form. So it says, "Ornaments caress that body, but the transcendental body of Krishna is so beautiful that it beautifies the ornaments he wears. Therefore, Krishna's body is said to be the ornament of ornaments. Enhancing the wonderful beauty of Krishna is a three-curved style of standing. Above all these beautiful features, Krishna's eyes dance and move obliquely, acting like arrows to pierce the minds of Srimati Radharani and the gopis. When the arrow succeeds in hitting its target, their minds become agitated." I just thought that was a very beautiful description of Krishna. Okay, we'll go into the next purport. Here, Krishna is being described as Sachit Ananda Vigraha, which is the eternal form and it fully represents existence, knowledge, and bliss, or eternity is another word for existence. Krishna's transcendental body is completely different from ours that we discussed, and there's another word here that's used, is that sometimes, so Srila Prabhupada says, Lord's transcendental body is completely different from ours. Thus, he is sometimes described as formless. And but this does not mean that he has no form, but it's just that he doesn't have a form like ours. And we can't conceive that because we are not, we haven't had that realization as yet. However, the Mahabhagavat, as the verse describes, has this this realization of Krishna, and that he doesn't even have veins. I mean, for us, if someone had to, maybe just, you have those slitting of veins, we would, die after some time, because it's a very integral part of our life. I didn't study biology in school, so I'm not so clued up with these things. But the heart pumps blood, and from there, it supplies it to the arteries and through the veins. There's some exchange there. But with Krishna, he doesn't even have veins. So it just shows how transcendental his body is. The other point Srila Prabhupada mentions here is that every part of his body can do the other work of the senses. So it says, Srila Prabhupada says, the Lord can walk with his hands. I mean, has anyone done a handstand before? Gangamata, have you ever? No? Even if someone can, I'm sure they can't walk with their hands for 10 minutes even, or 5. But Krishna can walk with his hands. He can accept things with his legs. He can see with his eyes and his feet. I mean, I have glasses, I can't even see with my eyes sometimes, and Krishna can see with his hands and his feet. He can eat with his eyes. So I just thought it was such a beautiful way of describing how Krishna can use his other senses, unlike we can. And then there's this word sukham, which means omnipotent. And we see, this links to the next purport of the deity form of Krishna. So here it says the Archa Vigraha. So the Archa Vigraha, or the deity form of Krishna, is installed in temples, and this is done by authorized acharyas who have realized the Lord in terms of the previous verse, or the previous mantra, which I'll just make reference to. Give me a second. Sorry, I'm just finding the previous verse. The previous verse says, one who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? So here we see how Krishna can, and it was said in the purport, how Krishna can transform matter into spirit. And this is where the deity form of the Lord comes in. Krishna can transform marble or stone or metal into a form that we can approach and worship. And Srila Prabhupada actually states here, it was a lecture that he gave, and he says, so Krishna has appeared as we can see him, because we cannot see more than stone, wood, metal. Therefore, Krishna has appeared as stone statue, but he is not stone statue. That we have to understand. He is Krishna, but he is so kind that he has appeared before us as we can see him. This is the philosophy, that not that stone is Krishna. Stone is also Krishna in the ultimate sense, because stone is the expansion of energy of Krishna, material energy. This is called the philosophy of the inconceivable one and different, achintya bed abed, achintya simultaneously one and different. So we won't go too much into achintya bed tattva, but it's basically that Krishna is, like we said, Krishna is a stone and the stone is Krishna. So the stone is Krishna's material energy that we've mentioned. But through Krishna, here Srila Prabhupada says, through the acharyas who have realized the Lord, or the non-different form of the Lord, can install these deities so that we can worship them. So it's by the Acharya's faith that we have the opportunity to approach the deity. And yesterday we actually attended a deity installation. And you can see that it's only by the mercy of the devotees that we actually get to understand the glories of Krishna through his deity form. And then in the purport, it's also mentioned that Archa Vigraha, worshipped in the temples, is also an expanded form of the Lord. By worshipping the Archa Vigraha, one can at once approach the Lord, who accepts the service of his devotees by omnipotent energy. The Archa Vigraha of the Lord descends at the request of the Acharyas, the holy teachers, and works exactly in the original way the Lord, by virtue of the Lord's omnipotence. And then another point that gets brought up in the purport is that foolish people may not have knowledge of the deity form of the Lord. And I was actually listening to Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj's class on this verse, because we studied Bhakti Shastri through Maharaj. And Maharaj was saying, these foolish people may not fully understand the concept of deity worship or idol worship, and may actually have very harsh critical comments. And Maharaj said, we can give them prasadam and and just try to preach to them, because eventually with the prasadam they may come to the understanding of the deity form of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada also gives an example that, this is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, verse 5, in the purport. It says that, we find mailboxes on the street, and sometimes we can post letters, but, excuse me, I'm so sorry, please excuse me, please, sorry about that. So when we see a mailbox, our understanding is that we can post a letter, and that letter will go to the original or the intended destination. However, if we see an old mailbox or an imitation, or you get a toy that maybe kids play with, if you post a letter in there, it may not necessarily get to the original destination. So it says here, this is not. So the mailbox is not authorized by the post office, and so this will not work. So similarly, God has an authorized representation in the deity form, which is called Archa Vigraha. So the deity that we see and worship is or has been what's the word? I'm looking for. Molded or created according to scriptures. It's not just some whimsical form of the Lord, and that's something that we have to understand. So in purport, in the fourth paragraph of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna can only be appreciated in proportion to one's surrender to him. The fallen condition of the living entity is due to the entire forgetfulness of the relationship with God. So, people who have little knowledge of who who we are and who God is, cannot fully understand this form of the Lord. And Krishna, being the kind Krishna that he is, he says in Bhagavad Gita, "As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly." So everyone follows my path in all respects. And further in chapter 15, verse 15, "I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness." So this shows that Krishna fulfills everyone's desires, no matter what, whether you want to enjoy materially or want to desire to serve Krishna to eventually go back home, back to Godhead. Krishna gives us the desires we have according to the particular thoughts or wants that we want in this life. And then to move on to paragraph 5, we see Srila Prabhupada mentioning how a high court judge must firstly have the qualification and must be given the authority from the superiors in order to practice as a high court judge. So here it shows that that our qualifications are insufficient. So Srila Prabhupada says qualifications in themselves are insufficient for one to occupy the post. It must be awarded by superior authority. So here we see, and Srila Prabhupada also says, the mercy of the Lord is also required. So when we want to do something or serve the Lord, we may want to cook something. If we want to cook for the Lord and we coming from a background that may not be so Krishna conscious, the first thing you do is you consult either a qualified cook or a recipe book that's been constructed by someone who has experience in cooking for Krishna. So, that is the one part. So we approach someone superior to us. But it is also the mercy of the Lord that we need to do that service of cooking, for example. And I wanted to bring in, the pastime of Mother Yashoda. I'm sure everyone has heard that, the Kartik pastime represents endeavor and mercy. So as much as we endeavor, we always need mercy. And we see that by Mother Yashoda, after having found Krishna, broken all the butter pots, she really wanted to bind Krishna, to teach him a lesson as a mother. There's that feeling of wanting to discipline him so that he doesn't make that mistake again. I know Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj mentioned that Mother Yashoda doesn't want Krishna to be a part of the butter mafia. So, with that mood, Mother Yashoda wanted to bind Krishna. And every time Mother Yashoda took rope, and we can see that in the painting over there, every time Mother Yashoda brought rope to bind Krishna, it was just 2 inches too short. And, she'd bring more and more, but it was always 2 inches too short. And when Krishna saw Mother Yashoda's, her motherly mood and, that mood of caring and, that's when the Lord allowed Mother Yashoda to bind Krishna. So it just shows that, as much as we try to do something, we also need to pray and beg for the Lord's mercy. Then I'll move on to the 6th paragraph of the purport, which shows how the Lord fulfills the desires of everyone. So Srila Prabhupada says, when the living being comes to know his constitutional position, he asks to be accepted into the transcendental association of the Lord in order to render transcendental loving service unto him. And the other point here, Srila Prabhupada is making this word yata tata yataha, indicating that the Lord rewards the living entities just in pursuance of their desires. So if one wants to go back home, back to Godhead, the Lord helps him. So I'll move on to paragraph 7, and this is asking from the Lord. So we see here this word paribu is being used to describe Krishna, which means the greatest of all. and that the Lord supplies everything to the living entities, and we can see that, how this material world is being sustained by Krishna, where the birds, they don't have to fight for food, everything is being supplied in a perfect balance. And, in our lives, we also see that Krishna makes some arrangement to always, keep us maintained and practicing Krishna consciousness. Krishna always makes that arrangement. But here, I wanted to read this quote from Srila Prabhupada. This is from a lecture in Vrindavan. So when we, before I read this quote, when we start practicing Krishna consciousness, there is this, when we pray to Krishna, there's always some desire, or Krishna, please can you help me pass my exam, or please Krishna, can you do this for me, or please Krishna, I need this BMW, or please Krishna, there's always this desire that we want from Krishna. But Srila Prabhupada says that don't ask anything from Krishna. Simply, you have to give everything to Krishna, and that is bhakti. Don't try to take from Krishna in exchange of your service. He can give you immediately. That is not difficult for him, but don't do that. So I thought that was a really powerful instruction, that we don't ask from Krishna. And I wanted to share this pastime that from Krishna Leela, and we can see it in the fourth picture on the side of the fruit vendor. This fruit vendor, it's actually from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 11, verse 11. So it says, while Krishna was going to the fruit vendor very hastily, Krishna saw this fruit vendor and wanted the fruit, and in order to do the exchange, Krishna picked up a handful of grains, and it says so most of the grains that he was holding fell, but nonetheless the fruit vendor fulfilled Krishna's hands with fruit, and her fruit basket was immediately filled with jewels and gold. But Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, from this incident, one should learn that for anything offered to Krishna with love and affection, Krishna can reciprocate millions of times over, both materially and spiritually. The basic principle involved is the exchange of love. With love and affection, one should try to give something to Krishna from one's source of income. Then one's life will be successful. Krishna is full in all opulences, but he does not need anything from anyone. But if anyone is prepared to give something to Krishna, that is for one's own benefit. The example is given in this connection is that even when one's real face is decorated, the reflection of one's face is automatically decorated. So when we see ourselves in the mirror, if we decorate ourselves, if we put our makeup on, in the mirror we'll see that same reflection. So similarly, if we try to serve Krishna with all our opulences, we as parts and parcels or reflections of Krishna will become happy in exchange. Krishna is always happy for his Atma Rama, fully satisfied with his own opulence. So if Krishna is happy, we will automatically become happy as well. And I'll just go to the last paragraph. So here we see Srila Prabhupada describing Krishna's glories through his different activities. So like how he killed powerful demons like Aghasura, Bakasura, Shakatasura, without having acquired such power through that, it's called, it says here, extraneous endeavor. And then the other point was how Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill without ever practicing weightlifting. He danced with the gopis without social restriction and without reproach, meaning without being judged. Krishna's love for the gopis was never questioned. And that was even worshipped by Lord Chaitanya, who was a strict sannyasi. So that, really highlights that point. And then the second point is that the Lord is always pure and uncontaminated. And the two words used here is sudham, which is antiseptic or purifying, and apapavidam, prophylactic. And this refers to the power of his association. So the examples of this given here is that sudham or antiseptic, so Krishna, he is antiseptic in the sense that even an impure thing can become purified by just touching him. And the example given is that the sun extracts moisture from many untouchable places on earth, yet it remains pure. So it purifies obnoxious things by virtue of its sterilizing power. If the sun, which is a material object, is so powerful, then we can hardly begin to imagine the purifying strength of the all-powerful Lord. And then the second part was apapavidam, or prophylactic. So we see here that the Lord cannot, sin cannot touch him. And we can also apply that to someone practicing Krishna consciousness. Even though someone may have a background that may be, like for example, the hippies during Srila Prabhupada's time, they were very sinful, they had very loose activities, and it was all about intoxication and illicit sex and just not following rules and regulations. But some of those hippies actually took shelter of Srila Prabhupada's instructions, and you see that some of these hippies have become qualified devotees in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And this prophylactic description here is that even if one may appear sinful or was sinful previously, but as long as his actions are all good, there is no question of him being affected by sin. So that's the beauty of Krishna's association. So that association that those hippies got through Srila Prabhupada's books and the holy name, it just shows what an impact it had on their lives. So I'll just read closing words from Srila Prabhupada. We should very seriously execute this Krishna consciousness without any deviation. Very seriously. We should not be neglectful that this is fashion or something imposed. No, this is most important function. Human life is meant simply for developing Krishna consciousness. He has no other business. But unfortunately, we have created so many engagements that we forget Krishna consciousness. This is called Maya. This is called Maya. Srila Prabhupada says it twice. We are forgetting our real business. We are engaged in so many businesses. Misleaders, I'll just read the English. The rascal, blind leaders are leading to hell. All of them are tied up by the stringent rules and regulations of the material nature, and they have become leader. They do not like any authority. This is called Maya. This is called Maya. They are being misled. Still, they are following that. This is called Maya. So try, some way or other. You have come in contact with Krishna, so catch him very tightly. Mam eva ye prapandyate, mayam etam tarantite. If you catch very tightly Krishna's lotus feet, then Maya will not be able to do any harm. And the easiest way to do this is by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So everyone together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I wish you all the very best for the upcoming Kartik month. And we pray that we can go deeper into this beautiful Krishna consciousness movement. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Are there any comments, questions, corrections? Okay, Ganga Mata. Thank you.
Hey, Kishori, that was such a wonderful class. It was really an excellent presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you. In relation to the Achinta Veda Veda Tattva principle, could you elaborate a little bit on the difference between Saguna and Nirguna?
I must be honest, I'm not qualified to answer this. May I ask Radhika Jeevan Prabhu? No. Ujjwala Rasamataji? Oh, okay, please. Thank you, Jai Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
So, nirguna, without quality, this is something that is sort of artificially brought about by, in the practice of Mayavad, when we don't accept, But in terms of sadhana, well, there's two types of nirguna. There's nirguna, where there's no material quality. There's only spiritual quality. But then there is some sense of quality. And in that sense, if you have pure bhakti, then nirguna is part of our spiritual process. It's the end of sadhana. Sadhana means that we're in practice. So if there's sadhana, it means that it can't be nirguna. It can't be without quality in the Mayavad sense, and it can't be without spiritual quality. It can't be with spiritual quality in that sense. So, sadhana is with quality always. It's with some tainted. It means that we're practicing, we're trying to achieve spiritual nirguna without material qualities. Yeah. Is that okay? Or?
Thank you very much, Jai Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada also says nirguna means without reaction. But I'm sure we can ask one of our seniors more on this. Anyone else would like to say anything?
I had one comment
Sure.
on you mentioned that the deity form of the Lord, how it is non-different from Krishna, and Prabhupada says sometimes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, but it's from Padma Purana. I found it just now. One who thinks the deity in the temple to be made of wood or stone, who thinks of the spiritual master in the disciplic succession as an ordinary man, who thinks the Vaishnav in the Achyuta Gotra to belong to a certain caste or creed, or who thinks of Charanamrita or Ganges water as ordinary water, is taken to be a resident of hell. And that's, from the Padma Purana.
Sure.
And
Thank you.
That's pretty intense. Like when we have these conceptions, then we're actually in a hellish condition. In other translations, it's described as hellish intelligence, when the intelligence is so disturbed by these speculations about the form of the Lord, the devotees, the spiritual master, that existence becomes very difficult. I actually had a follow-up then, a question on that point. Maybe you could shine some light on. At the Kanishta stage, at our stage of devotional service, maybe it's different for some of us, but we look at the Lord, and we have the realization in terms of knowledge that okay, the Lord is non-different. He is Krishna. But on the mundane level, on our mundane intelligent level, then we think, okay, then what is Krishna made of? Because we have no experience of the spiritual nature. So what is Krishna actually made of then? Because I still see then, if I had to touch the form of the Lord, I feel that it feels like stone. So does this mean that I'm just gonna remain in hellish condition, or in future can I how do we progress towards seeing the Lord more as spirit, understanding the Lord as spirit, and not just as stone?
That's a really good question. Thank you very much. So, I think there's just one word to it, is shravanam, by hearing from advanced devotees, and also getting the association that we be able to get to that point. I know we recently went to Vrindavan, and someone told us that you don't go to Vrindavan by seeing and experiencing all these different places. You experience Vrindavan through hearing. So I think if we continue to hear, Krishna Katha, the instructions of the advanced devotees, reading Srila Prabhupada's books, we will get to that point by the Lord's mercy. Yeah, and the other point was to pray for the Lord's mercy that Srila Prabhupada mentioned. No matter how many qualifications we have, we also need the Lord's mercy. I hope that answers it, if that's okay. Okay, thank you very much. Also, I'd like to pay respects to His Grace Mita Krishna Prabhu. He's one of our seniors, so if you have any questions, like Ganga Mata had a question, but we'll ask you in private after. Thank you. Okay, I think we can end here. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.